today what I would do is I would talk about what's new in DevTools, what are the new features that we created since last year. So, maybe I would just summarize 15 features of that. And then I will talk about the 5 new experimental features that you can use for today. Okay, without further ado, let me click. Okay. Okay, so to summarize all the new features we released last year, I can summarize in 5 words, which is GREAT, which is great. Okay, so G of the great represent grid tooling. So last year we have released grid tooling. I'm not sure any one of you have started using. If you have, you can mention in the comment. So let me just share with you one of the demo. So let's say this is your web page, and then for this, let me just zoom in a little bit more on the code. Let's say now you have this main element, which is a grid, CSS grid, and then you just define the item to center. Now with the CSS grid tooling, you can actually will see a new badge appear wherever there's a grid in your element. Then what you can do is you can toggle the grid badge, click on it, and then you will see that there's some highlight. There are some highlight in between here. Or let me just scroll down. So let's say the main is a grid and the container, the div, is also a grid. Let me just turn that on as well. Then you can see that we actually show you how your grid is laid out. And furthermore, you can customize, you can inspect your grid in the layout panel. This is the new panel that we have, the layout pane. So in here, what you can do is you can say, I want to see the line names, for example. So let's say in this case, let me zoom in more. So in this case, I actually name my names. I have put in different names for my line. Then it can actually show it. Or if I don't want the label, I can just say I hide the label so that you don't see the label. And then this name you see here, banner, sidebar, and content, is basically the area name that are assigned to each grid area. So if I toggle it, then you couldn't see it. Or if I just enable that, you can see it. And so, for example, if you want to know what are the size of this track, you can actually click and enable that. Then it will show you like how much, what is the size of the grid. So you can see now the size is running a little bit because I zoom in my tab. So you can see here, it will show you the 1FR, and then it's 96.66 px. Or you can even extend the grid line to make it longer so that you can, sometimes you just want to zoom and align the item. You might want your grid line to show a slightly longer. Okay, so these are some of the features that you can use to debug your grid. And then another one more little details that we have is when you start to animate your grid, and then you stop. Sorry, my PC is really slow. So you can see that the label actually will rotate accordingly as well. It won't like, so if you totally rotate like 180 degrees, it will still show accordingly. It's not show upside down. Okay, so this is the first feature. So try it out and let us know what you think. The second features that we have is, okay, is the rendering tab. So we have put in a bunch of new features in the rendering tab and the sensors tab. So the first one I want to introduce you is the locations emulation. So you can use DevTools to emulate location, to emulate your locale. So for example, I have this page here. Let me just turn off the. So in this page, I mentioned that I have a cooking class last year, December 24, 12 p.m. Asia, Kuala Lumpur time. So let's say this class, I want to have audience from Japan. I want to have audience from Germany. So I want to display the time and the date according to their time zone. So when I do development, how can I test? Test to make sure that the times actually show up as per the local time accordingly. So what I can do is I can use the emulate locale features to actually test that. So how do you can go to more options, more tools, and then go to the rendering tab. And then, sorry, it's the sensors tab. More tools and the sensors tab. And when you click here, you can, let's say, change the location to Tokyo, for example, and then refresh the page. So you can see now my time is changed to Tokyo time. So because Tokyo is 1 hour after Malaysia time, so it will show that the time zone is Asia Tokyo, and it's 1 p.m. their time. So if it's London, let us try, and then we refresh. You can see that it's actually 4 a.m. and the time zone is Europe, London. So it's actually very handy for you to do the testing of your website, especially if your website support multiple language and multiple time zone. The next features I want to talk about is the emulate inactive users feature. So let's say, imagine that you are developing a rice ordering kiosk. So you are developing a web page, but for a kiosk. So in this particular case, it's a kiosk for rice ordering, because I like Uncle Roger. Okay, so you can see that now I display a list of menu where people can click add to cart. So what happened is, wherever you go to a kiosk, right? Imagine that you go to a kiosk, when there is no one ordering thing, you don't show the menu. You actually show a slideshow of what are the promotions that you currently have, and then to entice the user to order that. So in this case, what you can do is we can try to detect whether the screen is active, whether the user is active, or whether the user is idle. Then you will redirect them to the promotion page, or you redirect them to the order page. So Chrome have a new API to do so, but with Chrome Devtools, you can actually test that API. So let's say now, if I go to more tools, and then the sensors tab, scroll down, you can see there's a emulate idle detector state here. So now my state is user active and the screen is unlocked. So what happened if I want to set to what happened is, because I have written my code in that way that if the user is idle and the screen is locked, I want to redirect them to the promotions page. So if I change to this one, then you can see that now the screen will auto redirect to the promotion page. And then if so if you want to know about the idle detector on the code on how to write that, I have an example here. Later on, I will share the link on how you can do that. So idle detector is a new API to do what I'm demoing here. So let's say now the user user is active and the screen is unlocked. Then we'll redirect them back to the rice ordering page. So you don't need to actually wait, because for the screen, imagine that now you are developing this web page, and then you need to wait for 60 seconds to wait for your actual device to actually lock and unlock. It will take a lot of time, and for you to test that. With Chrome Devtools, you don't need to wait. You just need to emulate the state and then test the function. Okay, then the next feature that I want to talk about is emulate the prefers reduce data. So in the CSS now, the CSS actually support a media query called prefers reduce data. So when prefers reduce data mode is on, then you might want to load slightly lighter data. For example, in my case, I have this hash one. This is the hash one using the font family rice, or you will fall back to Arial if the rice font is not loaded. So when the user is in prefers reduce data mode, so when the user have prefer reduce data, no preference, when they have no preference, which means I can load wherever I want, then I will try to load the rice font to display the font. So if let's say the user is in data saving mode, then what I will do is I will not put in this rice font file to load that. I will just use the basic Arial file, the Arial font, to display the content, so that it saves user a little bit of data. So this is one of the way you can use this prefers reduce data media query. So in order to test that, you can use Chrome DevTools to test that. So what you can do is go to the rendering tab, more tools, go to the rendering tab, and then in here we have this emulate CSS media feature prefers reduced data. Now is no emulation. So let's take a look again. Let me just go to here. So if I am if I just turn on prefer reduce data is reduced, you can see that the font actually updated. Actually using the Arial font because we say that we don't want to load the Rise font file. If I turn back again, then it will actually download the font file and then load it. So this is the last features of the R in rendering that I want to introduce to you. So move on to the next features. The next group of features that new features that we have is, so the next group of features I would like to introduce is the Elements panel. So one of the most used panel in Chrome DevTools is the Elements panel. That's why we have a lot of new features that we added in for the Elements panel. So one of this is if you are using, if you are writing your code in React.js or Svelte, then you might have encountered, you might have used some CSS in JS framework to write your CSS. Previously, so the CSS in JS code might look something like this. Let me just zoom in. So you might have a bunch of CSS code, but you written in JavaScript, and then you have your, then you will add to your CSS in JS framework, something like this. So when you do that, previously, if this is the code, you can't use DevTools, the style panel. So in here, usually you can just edit your style and then see in real time what is happening. But previously, if the code is CSS in JS, you can't do that. But now, since the release Chrome 86, you can do that. So let's say I just run the code here to add animations to this egg. Now, if I go to the egg, just select one of the egg. Okay. Now I see this. This is the code. It's showing constructed style sheet, which means it's the code that we add using CSS in JS. Previously, you can't edit this, but now you can edit it. So it makes it easier for those who use CSS in JS framework, especially for those who use React. Yeah. And the next feature is we also add in a new button here. If you do notice, it's called Computed Style Sidebar. So for example, previously when you want to resize your Chrome DevTools panel, when you resize slightly bigger, what we'll do is we'll show the style pane and the computed pane side by side so that you can see the computed pane. But in the latest release, we actually removed that. So when you resize, you will always see the styles pane. But what we do is we added a button here for you to toggle the computed sidebar pane. So in here, you can always, so no matter what you resize, it's your choice now whether you want to show the computed sidebar pane side by side, or you just want to close it and then view the computed pane in here. So, but if you show side by side, it's especially good for those big screen users because you want to have a one-page view of what is happening in your style and just edit it and see what is happening. So try that out. Hope you like it. And the next features I want to introduce is this group checkbox. This is a new checkbox that we add. So previously when you scroll all the computer properties, what you can see is a list of properties that there is that's related to the element. But sometimes you might want to group them according to what is their usage. So for example, now let's say I'm working on animations. What I care about is all the animation property. So what I can do is after I group, it will have a label here. So I can just scroll down and just focus on the animations property and just to observe that what is happening instead of try to search and look for all the others unrelated properties. Okay, and the last one for these elements new features is the capture node screenshot. So previously you can capture element node screenshot. So for example, I want to take a screenshot of all the egg here. What I can do is previously there is a shortcut in DevTools, but you need to click on Command-Shift-P, and then you pull up this command panel, and then you type screenshot. Or capture note screenshot, for example. Then it will take a screenshot. But this is an old feature, and probably not many of you remember what is the shortcut to trigger that, to trigger this command menu. So what we do here is, now we added a new shortcut. What you can do is you just right click and then select capture note screenshot, and then we will capture the screenshot for you, just to prove the screenshot is working. Then you see all the X here. Okay, so this is a handy feature to help you to take a screenshot. Okay, next let's talk about accessibility. Okay, so let's talk about accessibility. So Chrome DevTools also add in quite a few enhancement on the accessibility. So one of it is something we call the inspect mode tooltip. So for example, now if let's say I just go to this debug, this example here. Okay, let inspect. So when you can inspect an element by clicking on this this icon and then try to inspect it. So when you inspect now, you see that we added a bunch of new, refer to the accessibility section. So we added in some of the role and key, whether this element is keyboard focusable, to help you better debug the accessibility features of your page. So this label is quite helpful for those of you who want to have a quick view on whether your elements, you have assigned an appropriate role for it and whether it's keyboard focusable. Okay, another new features that we added in for the accessibility is the color contrast. So for example, in this page, some of you might notice, some of you might not notice. So this, we have this line 1. So the color of this text is dark gray. The background color of this text is pink color. And the second one, the color is lime, and then the background color is yellow. So if you have normal visions, for people that have normal vision, this might look okay for you because you can still see the text, right? There's no problem. But this text actually have very low color contrast. So how do I know, as a person with normal vision, how do I know whether this text has low color contrast? So what we can do is, in DevTools, we added in a features to help you better visualize this problem. So we add in a new features. You go to More Tools and Rendering. Scroll down. We added in features called Emulate Vision Deficiency. So with Emulate Vision Deficiency, we help you to emulate different type of vision deficiency. So you can see, so for example, protanopia is the inability to perceive red color and green color. Let's say I turn on this, I emulate this to protanopia mode. Now, when you debug the website, when you look at it now, you can see that this text is basically very unreadable. So you can try to try to debug different type of vision deficiency. Try to use that in your development and use that in one day to feel and then to check whether your website, the color contrast is okay or is not okay. It's very good for you to visualize this problem. Okay, another tools that we add in to help you better figure out whether your text have color contrast issue is we add in a one-click fix for you. So for example, for this line 1, we have this color and background. If you click on it, previously you can also see the contrast ratio. We are showing red error here. So it's telling you that the color contrast is too low. So it's very low for both AA standard and AAA standard. So what you can do, what we add in here is we can help you to auto fix the issues if you click on it. So we auto suggested you, for example, this color. So if you click on it, see the color is fixed now. So later on you can copy this this line color and then update it in your source file. Okay, and then there's one more features we call it CSS Overview. So because now let's say in my page, I have two color contrast issue. I don't want to, or what I want to do is I don't want to like just go and inspect one by one and go and check, click in and check whether it's a contrast ratio issues. It's very tedious. So what you can do is you can use the CSS Overview tab. So this is a tab you can enable. It's experimental. Later on, I'll tell you how to enable that. So in the CSS view overview, you can click Capture Overview. And then in here, go to the color section. So we'll just, when you run this CSS overview, it gives you an overview of your CSS of your whole page. And that will tell you how many color contrast issues that your page have. So for example, in my page here, I have 2 color contrast issue. Then it will show me 2 issues. So what I can do is I can click on here and then click on go to the element, or click on the element to go to the style elements panel and to fix that. So this CSS will actually save you some time to find the issues that you have for your color contrast. So it's very handy. Okay, so that's the A part. So the last letter is the T. So in Chrome DevTools, we also introduced many new tabs and many new panels, a few news panels to help you better debug your website issues. So for example, one of the new tab that we added is the issues panel. So let me toggle the issues panel, or maybe let's say just go to YouTube, for example. Do I have something in? Okay, so let's say in YouTube here, if you go to your console now, it's close. So if your website have some issues that you need to fix, DevTools now in the console tab, you see that there's some message here tell you that, oh, there's some issues. And then last time we actually just append all the issues in your console, make your console very hard to navigate because we just push in a bunch of issues there. Maybe it's your issue, maybe it's third-party issues, but it makes you very hard to debug your website for your real issues. So what we do now is we create an issues tab, and then we move all the issues and warning for the browsers in the issues panel. So what you can do is you click on this view issues, go to the issues, and then now we actually group these issues and tell you what happened and how you can fix it. So for example, here we show that you have 12 issues, and then these 12 issues is all related to the same site attribute. So just expand it. It will tell you what is the problem and then how you can resolve it, and what are the resources. What are the resources that actually cause this issue? So there are 12 cookies that cause this issue and 2 requests. So for web developer, maybe this might not be relevant to you, but you might have some security or network expert that can fix these issues. Then what you can do is you can also learn more. We also provide some resource for you to learn more about what is these issues about. Okay, so this is the issues tab. Moving forward, there will be more issues and more errors that will be moved to this issues tab on case-by-case basis. Okay, the other new tabs is a tab that can help you to debug media issues. So it's a good news, especially for those people who work on video player or stream or music player. So let's say just go to this page. I have a video on this page. So how do I know whether there's a drop frame happen? So what is really happening in my video? Maybe it's my buffering have some issues or what. So previously, in order to debug that, it's slightly harder. But now with the new Chrome DevTools media tab, you can actually debug that easier. So let me just go to more tools and then pull out the media tab. So in the media tab here, we show all the players in the page. So the player will only start if you start the video. So let's say now I start the video. Now you see that the new player is showing up here. Then it will show you what is the properties of this video, what's the resolution, what's the playback frame decoder, and what's the audio decoder, whether there's a few text track for subtitle, and what's the event that omit by the video player, on if there's any message, log messages. And the best one is the timeline. So here it will show you the real-time playback status and buffering status. Let me just play the video. And then I pause it. You can see that the video state is updated online. So if I pause it again, you can see that the timeline is updated to pause. And then if I played it again, and then I just drag it, you can see that the buffering status is actually happening. So it will tell you the buffering is happening between what duration to what durations. So this is very useful if you are working on developing the media player. Any one of you are media player developer here? So good for you if you don't know this feature yet. Okay, make your life easier. Okay, and then another features that I would like to introduce is the previously when you open this tab, right? So in Chrome DevTools, there are let me just, so if you let's say I just pulled out the rendering tab. Just now I show you rendering tab, right? So for example, so you might be wondering sometimes why the rendering tab is showing below and the elements tab is showing on top. So what if I want to move my rendering tab to the top? I want to view the, let's say, a rendering tab and the console tab together. So now what I can do is I can actually move the panels up and down as I want. So for example, let's say again, I want to view the elements panel and the lighthouse panel in one page. So previously I cannot do so because both of them are in the top panel. So what I can do now is I can right click on any of the tab and then I click move to bottom to move the panel to the bottom. So this way I can view any tools panel that I want to view in the same page. So now I can actually move back to the top or move any panel to the top. Yeah. So this is another new features that we have. Okay. So that's all for the current features that I want to introduce. So next, let's talk about the experimental feature. Oh, before I talk about that, any questions? Eric, any questions from the floor?
Okay.
Regarding of the new current features that we have?
Let's see. There are a few. Let's start with this one. Is it possible to set the time offset like GMT+2 without the present location and changing system time? So there is, right? There's other.
Yep. So just now, let's go back to the sensors tab. So if you go to more tools and you go to the sensors tab, so this location is basically emulate your location, your locale, and then you can set what's the locale, what's the time zone ID. So let's say in this list, right, you don't find the time zone that you want, you can actually click manage and then you add your own locations. So you can add your own location. I think Manila is not here, then you can add Manila. And then the latitude and longitude, I do not know. The time zone ID also I do not know. But if you have, you can actually basically add that to test that. Then you don't need to change your system time and date in order to test that.
Okay. Yeah. Another question is can show in real iPad. I think this one means the
emulation.
Yeah, the emulation for lock screen, right? Active.
Okay. Yeah. So for in Chrome DevTools, what you can do is you can toggle the device toolbar, and then from here there's a list of preset device that you can test on. But it's actually just what the test is it will show you the iPad size and the iPhone X size and the Pixel 2 size. So but it doesn't, some of the features actually doesn't emulate. So for example, in your iPhone, there are a new image format we call WebP, or there's a new image format we call AVIF. So these are the two new image format that support in Chrome but doesn't support in iPhone. So you can use these features to test the image, whether it show up nicely in the viewport. But if let's say you want to test the format of the image, you need a real device to test it, because in Chrome here, you will still see the image, but in fact, in your real device, in your real iPhone device, you might not see it because in your real iPhone device, it doesn't support that image format. Yeah, but it's very handy, these tools, for you to test different size, and then you can actually rotate it And then one more tricks that you can do here, maybe some of you know, some of you doesn't know, is you can show the device frame. So to make it more like a real iPhone. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
I did not know that.
Okay.
Another question. Does the media console work for audio players?
That the media console work for what player?
Audio players. So the video thingy, the rendering, buffering.
Yes, I think it's all the media player. So SoundCloud. Let us go to SoundCloud. Okay. Let me see if I have, or Spotify. But I did not log in Spotify. Okay. Yeah, you can test that out. So the feature is already rolled out. I don't need to show here. But I think it's yes. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so that's a yes. It worked. So
yeah.
I think that's no other question.
Oh,
Looks
no
like
other
it.
questions.
Yep.
Okay. So there are
Okay.
5 experimental. There are a lot of experimental features that we currently experimenting and developing. But these are the 5 that I think is quite useful and maybe will get you be more excited in Chrome DevTools. So the first one is the Flexbox debugging tool. So just now in the layout panel, I showed that we have the grid debugging tools we added in that. Then there's a lot of people asking us, so when will you support Flexbox debugging? So now it's here, but you need to turn on the experimental flag in order to use that. So for this Flexbox, how do you turn on experimental feature is you go to this setting button here, and then click on experiment. And then what you can do is you just scroll down and then try to find the Flexbox debugging feature. Oh, sorry, this is the, so for all these new features that I'm talking about, right, you need to use the Canary versions of Chrome. So if you see my laptop, so Chrome, we have Google Chrome, the stable version, which the user usually use. But as a developer, you can install the other versions of Chrome, which is the Chrome Canary. So for Chrome Canary, every day we'll do a new build and we'll do a new feature release to the Chrome Canary. So if you would like to test the latest features, you can actually install Chrome Canary. So let's say in this page, I want to debug the CSS, the Flexbox. So what I do is click on the settings and then go to the experiments tab here, and then try to find the enable new CSS Flexbox debugging features. So once you enable that, you refresh the page, and then you can see here it's similar to the Flexbox debugging. We added in a new Flex badge here to help you toggle and debug your Flexbox. So for example, my navigation bar is actually a Flexbox. So so what you can do here, what you see here is we say justify, justify the content to be space between, so that it have a white space in between these 2 elements. So it's side by side. So so one of the features that this Flexbox debugging tool have is it can now help you to visualize what exactly is the space between, what exactly is flex end. So for example, just now space between, you can see the new icon that we added in here, basically tell you that, oh, so the space is slightly far away. So if I want to put space around, so the space is slightly closer. If you want to put space even, so basically we give you some hints on how it will look like in your screen. So it's easier for you when you select and try to edit the properties. And another thing that I want to show you is the so this icon that I show you is actually context aware. So what do I mean by context aware? So in Flexbox, what you can do is you can set the flex direction. Let's say I want the direction usually is a row, but let's say now I set the direction to column. So it will always show the flex column direction. So now if you go back to your space between, let me just remove it. So now you go back to the space between. Do you notice that the icon actually changed as well? Previously, it would show like a row-based space between, but now it's actually rotate to follow your flex direction to show in the column view, and then it's space between. So it's context aware, so it makes you easier if you want to work with your grid and work with your flex Flexbox. And then we also add in the layout as well. So in the layout, you can see that you can select. So in this page, I have 2 Flexbox overlay here. You can actually toggle both of it. And then, or when you debug it, you can actually change the navigation. You can actually change the color of the line. So if you want to show like different color, you can actually do so. You can actually do that for the grid just now as well, just that I didn't show you. But it's actually very handy, and you can just click and then jump to the Flexbox batch that you want to debug. Just click and then click on it and then show the Flexbox batch. Okay, so try it out. So this is the first feature I want to talk about. The other features that I want to talk about is the customized keyboard shortcut. So we receive a lot of queries or a lot of people that say that, oh, can I customize the keyboard shortcut because I have my preference when I want to copy a certain thing or when I want to perform certain action, I have my own preferred keyboard shortcut. But in Devtools previously, you always need to use what we have set. You cannot set your own, but now you can. So, but what you need to do is same, go to the settings, experiment. What you need to do is you need to turn on. So this enable keyboard shortcut here. Let me just open my screen bigger. So there's 2 types of experiment, you see. So there's one type of experiment. We just show you that this experiment could be unstable and unreliable. And then there's the bottom part. This experiment is particularly unstable. So it's very dangerous for you to use. So, but if you want to try it out, you just enable it. So the keyboard shortcut editor is basically under here because it will impact quite a bit of your other shortcut probably. So you just enable that and then you refresh your Devtools. And then what you can do is you go to the shortcut. Now you can edit. So we'll show an edit button here because just now I already enabled that. And then you can edit the shortcut. So for example, to clear your console, previously you can click Control L or Command K. So let's say now I want to edit it. So I want to clear. I want to put like if I want to clear my console, I want to put, let's say, let me just delete it. I want to clear my console with Control Z, Control S, for example, Control S. So if this shortcut is used, then it will tell you that, oh, you cannot use this shortcut because it's used by some other function. So never mind. Then I say that, never mind. So this is someone already used this, right? Then I will say Control S1. Control S and Command S and okay, wait. Let me just put it. Command 7. Okay, so no one use Command 7. Let me just clear the console with Command 7. So I will just save it. Command 7. So now we go to the console, type something in. Okay, then now I type Command 7, it will clear. But you cannot see that I click Command 7, but I actually typed that. So use the Command 7 to clear it. And even better is that in your shortcut here, we support multiple chord. So which means, so just now, the first example that I showed. So what is multiple chord? So in, for example, in your code editor, like Visual Studio Code, for example, sometimes you might have, you want to support multiple chords. So for example, only clear the console when user type Command C and Control S. So this one is, this command will only execute if the user type in Command C and Control S. So this is the multiple chord. So you can set single chord or multiple chord based on what, based on your preference. So you no longer need to just follow the shortcut that Devtools provide. So it's a pretty handy new features. Okay, next one is something we call the new advanced perceptual contrast algorithm, APCA. We call it, in short, we call it APCA. So previously, just now, remember when I showed you the contrast ratio, the standard that we usually use to see whether a certain color contrast is up to the standard, we are using AA and AAA standard. We are using the AAA and AA standard to evaluate whether this color contrast is acceptable or not. But there's a new advanced algorithm that we can use. Now it's called APCA. So what is APCA? So color contrast, so to detect whether a certain color is up to a acceptable contrast ratio, it depends on not just the color itself. So previously in AA and AAA, it just purely depends on color, but Apca actually take in like your environment and your some of the surrounding color in order to do the calculations of the algorithm. So then it gives you a percentage of whether it is up to the color contrast ratio standard. Okay, so let me just show you an example. Okay, so go to the settings, go to the experiment, and then here, so you enable the new to replace the Apca to replace the AA and AAA guideline. So in here, if I go to my, let's just go to my demo, my anchovy demo just now. Okay, so for example here, if you click on this one, the text here, go to the style pane, scroll up, click on the color. Here, instead of showing you the AA and AA standard, we are showing you the Apca. It's calculated using the Apca. And then same thing, what we do here is we will show you the line here. So if you select above, which means the color is still not up to the standard, but if you select below the line, means that the color is acceptable, the contrast ratio is acceptable. Okay, and then it will tell you that how much the Apca calculation is. Okay, you can read more about Apca in our website. Later on, I will share the slide as well. So you can go to the website and learn more about how this algorithm is calculating the color ratio. It's quite interesting to read. Okay, and the next features, the next experimental feature, just now I kind of show it already, is the CSS overview. So this whole CSS overview panel is experimental. So for you to enable that, go to the experiment and then scroll down here. You can see CSS overview, enable that. Then you can run capture CSS overview. Then what it will tell you is how many element is in your page, how many rules do you have, how many IDs do you have. So if you want to have a one page view of what are the color that you use in the page, here we'll show you all the colors you use in the page. So you can just copy, and then especially for designers, it's actually very handy for you to see whether certain color is not part of your company color and you want to change that, it gives you the view. And then what's more is it will show you what are the font that you are using. So in here, you see that I use so many fonts, but usually your web page maybe don't have such many fonts like Time, Rewake, and others. And then what are the unused declaration that probably you really don't use it and you can remove it. But in this case, I don't have. But if you have, then it will show you the list. Then you can see that whether you want to, whether it's really unused, and you can remove it. So you can save some bytes to improve the performance. Okay, so this is the CSS overview panel. Try to run it on your website and see the result. Okay, the last one is recorder. So this is a very interesting features. So last time, if you have used Microsoft Excel, for example, what you can do is in Excel, there's a function called macro. What you can do is you can record the actions that you perform on the page, and it will try to save it. And then later on, you can replay the actions that you perform. So in Chrome DevTools, we have added in something called a recorder features to help you do something similar. So again, go to your experiment tab, and then go and find, or not this one, sorry. You need to use the Canary version because it's not yet in the stable version. Go to the experiment, and then you can see a recorder features here. Enable that. So let's say now what I want to perform later is, this is especially useful if you want to create some test script for your page. You want to automate the test script. So for example, now what I want to test is, I want to test when I go to jack.fyi, I want to go to this web page. I will click this that slide link, and then I want to go to the first presentation, And then in the first presentation, I want to toggle the mode of the page. So I want later on I want to create an automated script to perform exactly that step. So from the main page, go to deck and then select the first presentation and then click on and then toggle the theme. So what I can do is I don't need to hand code the code myself. I can use the source panel to do that. So let me just, in your source panel, there's a few tabs here. We added in a new tab called recording. You need to enable it from here. Go to the recording tab, and then you can click on add recording. So let's say now I just name this properly. So just call it test.js, for example. So in here, I can say that let's start recording all my actions here onwards. So I just click record. So now you can see that it's actually append some of the code, Puppeteer, and then launch the browser, and then open a new page, and then go to jack.fyi, which is my page. Good. The next action I want to do is I want to click on the jack.fyi/deck, this link. So you see that when I perform this step, what it append here is it say that, oh, please wait, target.man, go to the frame, and then wait for the selector using the area to select the URL, and then click on the URL. And then you see that there's this extra code here. Later I explain why, because this is the way that I write my code. So because every time when I when I do a redirection on my page, I will actually do a checking on the site color, so the color toggle, so you see that, but it's actually just a checking. Anyway, so now if go to this page, I will click on the first presentation. Okay. So after go to the first presentation, you see the code append again. So it will say that do the same thing again, create a const, and then say the element is wait for someone to click on this word script in the link with this area name. And then click on that, and then go to this page. Now click on this one. So it will toggle the color. Okay. So then you see that it's actually append another line of click on the image toggle. So what I can do now also, this is the code that I want to run automate later. So I just stop the recording. And then that's it. So this is your script. So what I can do here, it will just show you all the code that you need. So what I can do here, I can delete whatever code that I don't need, the extra code that I don't need. Because maybe there's some backend JavaScript that you run like I have just now, so that you can remove those code that is auto running. So just preserve all the steps that you want. And then let's say here you want to say that console.log, you want to assert whether the URL of the page, assert your page.url, URL is equal to this URL, for example. So now you have done your script. So remember that this script, we are using Puppeteer. If you haven't heard of Puppeteer, Puppeteer is basically a Node.js library, which you can search from, you go to NPM if you are using Node.js. So in the NPM, you search Puppeteer. So this is a library, open source by Google, in order for you to perform browser testing. So you can, whatever thing that you can do with Chrome, you can do with Puppeteer, using code. So for example, here, if you require the Puppeteer, then it will just say that, please launch a browser for me. So Puppeteer.launch will give you a browser. Then if you want to create a new page, imagine that you are manually create a new page. And then go to a certain page. Imagine that you are typing on the address bar to go to a certain page and then take a screenshot. You can use Puppeteer to perform all these actions to automate your browser testing, for example. And Puppeteer actually can run in not just Chrome, but Firefox as well. I have another talk recorded in YouTube, which you can watch, or I actually talk about what are the features that's available for Puppeteer. So it's a very interesting library. So the code that we generated here is basically based on Puppeteer. So in order to run this, you cannot run in the browser now. So, but what you can do is you can save this file. You can save as, you can just save as any folder of your in your page in your computer, and then just run it. So let me just set this to test3.js, for example. So once I save that, I can actually run it using my Node.js library. Okay, I just open my command line here. And then I cd to my code folder. And then in the code folder, I will just run Puppeteer test3.js. Wait, what is the command that I'm written? Okay, let me just open the file. Oh, not the code folder. That's why I need to cd to the recording folder. Okay. And px. Recording folder. Let me just open it in here. So test3. So in this project, I actually installed the Puppeteer. That's why I can run Puppeteer. Okay. Yeah, you can just test it. Install it, and then follow the instruction on how you can run Puppeteer. Okay. Okay. That's all for my presentations. Okay. So for the Chrome Devtools team, we actually have Chrome Devtools engineering blog as well. So if you want to follow us to learn how we actually develop Chrome Devtools. So for your information, for those of you who doesn't know, Chrome Devtools, like this Devtools, is basically just a web application. It's developed using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to help you debug your CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. But basically, this whole thing is a web application, and it's open source. You can just go and see our source code online. But if you want to understand, if you are interested on how we develop certain things, so for example, how we actually migrate our code from JavaScript to TypeScript, I think that some of you, that your project might also migrate JavaScript to TypeScript. We actually have an article to share with you how we actually migrate that. And imagine that Chrome Devtools, the source code, the JavaScript, is gigantic, and it's 10 plus years old, over 10 plus years old. So you can imagine how much effort that we use to actually do the migration. So there might be some insight that you can learn from there. So go and check out our engineering blog, or follow our Twitter to follow the latest to know the latest update. So that's all. So if you want to, so this is the page for the slide and the top. And if you would like to follow me in Twitter or Facebook, you just look for the name. So this name, I think, is pretty unique, Jecelyn Yeen. So you can search me up. Thank you.
Thank you, Jecelyn. So yeah, I just, there's a lot of quality of life improvements, right, to the Devtools, like the shortcuts and stuff. And I can't help but to notice that Puppeteer went from like this very, very small library, and then I remember they added a website, puppeteer.dev, and then it turned into a Chrome extension, and then now it's part of the Devtools itself.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
that's really cool.
Yeah, so I think the vision, the goal of the Devtools is to help make your life, developer life, easier to debug your site, and then give you insight of how you can improve your website. So this is what we'll continue doing. And if you have any ideas on how to improve, or you think that there are certain features that should be part of Chrome Devtools, just ping me on Twitter. Yeah.
Okay. let's go to the questions. We only have one question.
Okay.
I think, okay, this is the one about the iPad.
Oh, okay. This thing.
Yeah, I think Ken meant that because there's the toggle, right, to see if the screen is active or not, something like that.
I don't understand the question. Oh, you mean just now the idle detector?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Yes. I think that's what he's talking about.
Yep. So what is the question?
How does, okay, sorry. Okay, so how does the iPad trigger it when it is locked? So how does it actually work on the actual physical machine?
Okay, so this idle detector. Actually you need to enable, because this is features that will that need user permission specifically, just like your notification and stuff like that. So when you enable this idle detection features, and then so since then when you need to enable, the user need to enable it. So let's say you deploy it to your kiosk, right? You need to enable it as well in order for you to use. And then for this idle detector, there's a event listener, there's an event hook that you can listen to it. So for example, you will just listen to the change event. So wherever there's a change, then you can retrieve the screen state or the user state. So you can check whether the screen is locked, or the user is active or non-active, and then you will do certain actions. So basically, this is how you can use this API. This API is still pretty experimental. So I don't think I need to check whether it's support in all the platform yet, but it's definitely on Chrome OS and Mac OS. Yeah.
Interesting.
There's
one more question from Chang Koklip. So how long did Chrome DevTools team took to migrate from JavaScript to TypeScript?
Okay. If you want to know the answer to this question, you have to go to our blog, Chrome DevTools. Let me just show you. Okay, let's go to Chrome DevTools. Okay, disable this. So this engineering blog. Okay, here. So we have a write down. So this DevTools architecture refresh, migrate to JavaScript module. Okay. So even migrate to JavaScript module also take a lot of effort. So it takes us about 1 year plus, and it's not yet finished. So we have to do it for 1 year plus 1.5 years probably, and it's not yet finished, the migration to TypeScript. We recently just almost finished migrating the JavaScript to using the standard JavaScript module, like your import export thing. So because previously in DevTools, prior to this import export JavaScript module, there's none. So in Google, we actually create our custom way of the JavaScript module. But now since the web is they have the standard way to do it, then we migrate to that, and that also take quite some time to do it. So we actually have a write up for that.